did that, we added one contribution of $25.03 interest. That brings her, and there were no debits or checks, so that brings our balance to $4,226.64. Not reflected in there, but I'll just mention it, that I had to renew the post office box. That was annually was $226, and it's gone up quite a bit. And our savings, which is really the 4th of July account, opening balance on March 1st was $44,258.16. To that, we had our first contribution towards this year of $2,500, and the interest is $7.52. So, and we didn't pay anything out within this period. As of March 31st, our balance was still $46,765.68. Also not reflected in this balance is I paid the deposit for the fireworks was $16,500. So really our balance as of this moment is $30,115.60. So also just wanted to mention as we are closing out our fiscal year, this year we've actually gotten about half of the contributions we usually have. So I'm going to send out one final reminder just to see if we can drive some of that. I have a list, a little spreadsheet, you can see how short it is, of the communities and the individuals who have contributed. So if you want to look and see if your community was on there, maybe nudge, but I will be sending an email out. But it's going to go to the people on our list, so you may get it as board members, and I'll ask you to let your association's management or your board know and see if they wanted to contribute. It is voluntary, so I'm not saying anyone's delinquent. And I also have some paper forms here. I will send this out in that email as well. This is just the contribution form, so people will know to send it in. And I think that concludes my report.
Roughly each year, how much does GHADA contribute toward the 4th of July?
Oh, we were doing 200.
Pardon?
200.
$200?
That's what we just had the checking account. We just had. Now you're seeing big sums now roll in from other donations. But before, I think one year we were. I'm trying to remember. I think we were a little generous. In the next meeting, well, actually the June meeting, you'll get my report for the whole year. You can see what we had contributed. But last year, based on, the fact that we got 4,000, usually we only have 2,000 in our checking account. The reason this number is because we transferred funds from our savings to clean it out so we could use a base for our 4th of July. So the fact that we have 4,000 sounds like, oh, you got quite a bit in your checking account, but we no longer have a savings account. Yeah. And we used to combine, we used to have about 5,000 between the two, but now we're at 4,000. And so a few more, donation contributions, we only bring in generally through contributions. Our high year was 600, our low year, this is our low year, but it's only 275 right now. And so we'd like to see that get up to closer to 400. Our average is 400 to 500. So we don't really have a lot of income. Now that we are a charity though, we can get contributions from other sources.
I heard you mention 16,000 for the fireworks. Where does that money come from?
But that's coming from last year. We brought in it was $80,000, and we got kicked off pretty well. That's why we still have 40,000 in the account.
Oh, okay.
And last year we had to scramble because we had to make that first deposit, and we're starting from ground zero. Okay. But we got some extra money from the county, and I believe the state. And then there was some money left in that fund that used to run the fireworks. So that got us kicked off, but it was a very good year. It was election year though, we may not get some of the support that we got last year from the, you know, the candidates, but that's pretty much the story. Okay? You have a motion?
In the treasurer's report, you said we recently received a $2,500
Yes.
contribution. Where did that come from?
It's a towing company, 24-hour, I don't want to misstate their, I don't have that spreadsheet with me. I keep a separate
That's
spreadsheet.
for the 4th of July.
Yeah, that was for the
donation.
4th of July.
Right.
That was our first donation to the 4th of July, but then we put out, which isn't reflected in this balance, the $16,500 deposit. Okay, can we have a motion to approve?
I think you have a question.
Yes.
It's fine, whenever. Is there a way to actually make the donation online and not have to like write a check?
Not that I'm aware of at this point. I guess we could probably set up that way, Venmo or
Just
something.
a suggestion, especially with donations being that low, like
Yeah.
maybe make it a little, like, I don't even
More
have a
convenient.
checkbook. But
Okay, I think most of it is, it just falls through the cracks. Unless someone's coming to the meeting or you're sending out constant reminders, you know. I'm sure the communities don't think much of donating or
But
contributing.
if you send out an
$25.
email and, you know, somebody, you can say like, here, submit it here,
Yeah.
and somebody can do it immediately when it's on their mind, it might have a greater impact than like, oh, I have to remember to bring a check to the next
Oh,
meeting.
yeah. I mean, I can't say GHADA is moving in that direction, but so many other organizations, including our homeowner association, you have 3 different ways. You can sell, you can do things like that.
Yeah, I mean, Zelle should be, you should be able to transfer directly into the checking account from anywhere. There's no cost.
We'll look into that for the coming year. I think it's, as we stand now, we'll have to, the executive board would have to get together and figure out. Sounds like something we want to do, but we'll have to see about setting it up. Thanks for the suggestion.
I do all my banking. I don't write checks. I do all my banking on my online
Yeah.
bill pay. And that's how I do my dues. I just
Yeah.
do it as, I just set up an
Oh,
account
you
for
set it up to send it.
Hillcrest and GHADA and put the PO box number and
Yeah, because if
do
you
it as
do
an
bill
electronic
pay,
payment through the banking.
if you do bill pay, you don't have to pay. But it depends on your organization as well, because if they're used to only doing checks, it depends how sophisticated. But it's a good option for anyone that, any communities that would like to do it that way, or individuals. We do get individual contributions too, thank you. So, and thank you.
Well, I noticed that there are about half a dozen people in the village of Manly that have contributed every year since dirt, and they still do.
Not to the data. You and the community's the only
Well, no,
country.
no,
Oh,
individuals in the community as
Okay.
well as the community itself.
okay. All right. We
Okay.
we approved it.
We don't have a president's report since Mark's not here, so we'll start with our legislators and we'll go with Janet.
Not going to complain about my husband, too. I went home last
Is he a
night and
good
said,
boy?
okay, I complained about you the whole night that I was there. He said, please don't do that. Just a couple of things. So we love my notes, because as things came up today at budget hearings, I wanted to write them down. Within the next couple of months, through the Recorder of Deeds office, they should be opening a portal for homeowners associations, because by state law now, all new and some existing, depending on when your community was built, we have to file all of our documents online. So your deed restrictions, your turnover, anything that you have to run your association, all has to be filed. Probably a year ago, the county said that if you file any of your homeowner association documents, we will not charge you, because the Recorder of Deeds office charges by the page. So that is all wiped out, so you can file everything free. And then eventually, when this portal opens, which should be, I'm going to guess, within the next 3 to 6 months, any homeowners association has the ability then to go online and pull up any of their documents. Because what we're finding is is that we change presidents in homeowners associations, and not everything always gets turned over. So this way, the main documents that you need, that are legal documents to run your homeowners association, will be available with a few clicks of the button. This is my best news of the night. On the county portion of your taxes this year, there will be a 5% one-time discount. We haven't had a tax hike in a long, long time again, but we do well between the CARES money that we got from the federal government and the ARPA money. We can fill places within our backfill salaries and things within our budget for the people that work exclusively, have worked for the county, but work exclusively or even part-time on any of those projects that are under either the CARES, we're coming to the end of the CARES or ARPA. So through CARES, we set up the testing sites. We had a lot of people from the county that worked those testing sites. Instead of going to their regular job, which they had to do also, but they would show up for several hours a day at the testing sites. We were able to backfill all of those salaries. So we came out with, on the plus side, with a fairly decent savings that we had through our budget. So that is coming back to the community in terms of a 5% one-time discount. So I can't tell you that it will happen again, but since ARPA money goes on for another 2 years, there is the possibility that that could happen a second time. But right now, the county executive is saying it's a one-time. Yes?
Will that come as a reduction on our 2024 taxes, or will we get a refund check in the mail?
No, it should come in July when you get your tax statement. It should be reduced by 5%.
Okay, so we won't physically get cash back.
Correct.
We'll just get our tax reduced.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll just pay less.
Pardon?
Yeah, you'll just pay less.
You'll just pay
in
less.
September.
Yes,
or
I
by-
don't know how much less that turns out to be, but for some people, it's a decent amount. We're working on condo safety at this point. There are 3 of us on council that have put together a task force, and we have probably 5 people that have been on national task forces since the Surfside collapse in Florida a year or so ago. We're finding that we probably have a lot of buildings that have never, ever been looked at in all the years they've been standing. You know, oh, you see a crack in a garage wall and you just kind of plaster over it. So we've been working with some very well-known national people on trying to get condo safety regulations and code. It's going to involve the state and it's going to involve the county in order for us to get all of this through. But right now we seem to be doing well. Yes?
Why is it just the condos? You could have other businesses.
You could, but we have to start someplace, and it's going to be hard enough to get the votes, I think, on condos. And that's, so because the places like the New Jersey one, the Surfside, those were residential communities, condos. So we are starting with residential. I think we need to go to office buildings next, but we need to get one step at a time because we're going to need some enabling legislation or some change in the legislation at the state level. So we've learned you kind of piecemeal it and not overwhelm people that aren't sure they want to vote for this anyway, and we can use, it's easier for us then to go and explain. And then the next time we can move on to another facility. Yes?
So does that include buildings like Cokesbury Village?
Yes. Yes, because in Cokesbury, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cokesbury you buy in, so you actually own the unit. So that's more of a condo than like the Summit where it's all rented. Because we're not even doing apartment buildings at this point. Because it's hard enough to manage the state code, which is called GHADA, which is common interest communities. And it's hard enough to manage everything between the state and the county with just residential, that we felt we have a better handle on residential at this point because GHADA has been now in existence for a really long time. So that's the reason that we started with that. But I foresee that we will move on to other places because when we had the earthquake, 10 years ago, I remember we were in a committee meeting, and I remember I had a Pepsi in front of me. My Pepsi was open, but I hadn't taken any drinks from it. And about all of a sudden, my Pepsi fizzed, and then it went back down. And 5 minutes later, it fizzed again. And the guy across the table from me said, "What do you have in that drink that it keeps fizzing up?" Well, and within another 5 minutes, the whole building was shaking. And, you know, I faced the window, so I wasn't seeing the shaking, but behind me, there are pictures. And the people sitting across from me are watching the pictures. And somebody went, "I think we're having an earthquake." And I remember Wayne Merritt from Manly, who was our general manager of Public Works at that point, saying, "I think we just had an earthquake." And he said to me, "We have no idea what we don't have any recent investigations of any of these buildings. If we go downstairs, we're not going to know if that crack was there from this or something else." So they then went through and did the entire surveying of all of our buildings in the county. But you know, we've got 8, 9-story buildings there that, God forbid, we don't want one of those to come down. But so yes, I am 90% sure that we will move on from here, because we have an attorney that loves doing projects like this. So he's just waiting for our next one to come up. So I think that will just be a progression. But we're in baby steps.
Do you know if Newcastle County has an earthquake design code?
They do now.
When did that happen?
Well, emergency management always had certain things that were in place. I mean, between the state and the counties and the municipalities, we all know who's going to do what, if you have the ability to do it, and who's your backup if you don't, and who's in charge when you get to a certain place, and evacuation routes. I mean, all of that has been set up for a long time.
Well, I'm talking about the initial design of the building. When you submit
Oh,
the-
yes, there are national standards now that we will follow, and have followed, I think, for a while. But yes, but I mean, when county buildings were built, we had none of that. You know, they're just, okay, here we go, 9 stories, the parking garage underneath. So the one time there was a bomb scare, I worked for the state, and there was a bomb scare in the parking garage. We share the parking garage. It's on top of both buildings. The county evacuated, and they never told the state that there was a bomb scare over there. So there we are, 11th floor. So, you know, sometimes communication has not been wonderful, but we're working on that also, because we only own 49% of the city-county building. The city owns 51%, and we struggle with communication from them every single day. It's, you have to own it yourself if you are going to have true control over it. And just one more thing, we are partnering with state health and social services. And I don't know if you remember, but we were testing wastewater during COVID because we could kind of see where the blooms were. You know, well, they're now beginning, they're going to continue the monitoring, and they're doing it for drugs. There's a whole list of illegal, or legal, if you get them legally, drugs that we will be testing. And I think what they're hoping at this point is that they can kind of see sections of the county, which you kind of know anyway, but you know, sections of the county that are worse, or if we see one section all of a sudden getting worse, those are areas that we can then target with community policing. Yep.
You mentioned the recorder of deeds office.
Mm-hmm.
Do individuals have access online to those records? Or
I think you have access online. I have actually only looked in Sussex County, and we have some access online, but I don't think it's as full as what it will be here. And I think if you go online here, you have to pay.
You do.
Right.
I went online thinking, oh, I'll just look up something or other, and they want like $1 a sheet to look at it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, talk about a ripoff. They told us, you know, it's going to be wonderful to put everything online. Well, they didn't mention that they were going to use it for a cash cow.
Well, and that is a revenue stream for us. So yes, you're right, it is a cash cow. And they make millions of dollars more that go back into the county general
Well,
coffers.
if you
But,
could, to print out just the deed restrictions for Manly.
yeah, you probably got 8 pages, 10 pages.
No, it's like 23 pages.
Oh my gosh. But, yeah, I mean, you're right. But this is part of the reason that in the beginning, we said that you weren't gonna have to pay, because it's costing homeowner associations a lot of money, because you usually have your declaration, so all of your turnover, everything is by the developer, and then they give it to the homeowners association. That's your turnover. You have your deed restrictions, and so
Your incorporation, if you incorporated, and
Right,
then you have your
right.
bylaws.
Right.
And,
Right. So the state said, if the counties decide that they don't want to charge the homeowners associations, then they have to pass a piece of legislation by themselves. So as soon as that came out, we passed one, because we make enough money from the recorder of deeds office off of businesses, legal documents coming in, that there's no reason, when we're requiring homeowners associations to file all of this, there's no reason why we should be charging you to get it back out. The whole point was we want one repository, so that anybody that 20 years from now, they take over in your development, that they know they've got all the legal documents that they need there.
I had copies, bad copies, when I took over the Manly Homeowners Association. I retyped them all and have kept up electronic copies so that.
Oh my God, well,
so-
you're better than most.
Yeah, so that we have copies, but in the box marked corporate documents, guard carefully, do not throw out, there are the originals in a little envelope.
And that's the reason that we're going through.
Is there a requirement for the communities to file?
There's a
For this system?
requirement for certain communities. If you don't have common property, you're only a civic association. Civic associations are not required, they're just volunteer organizations. If you have common property, so open meadow, stormwater, those documents, since GHADA was initiated, have to be filed with the recorder of deeds office.
They're really maintenance corporations, probably.
They're just like,
Maintenance corporations.
Yes,
instead of
yes.
services.
yes. But those are the ones that are legally bound to certain things, so those are the ones that should have the most access to the documents that rule their community.
Yeah, but those deed restrictions, that's where the fights happen.
Yeah, but even, so, many communities redo deed restrictions every so many years. Those new ones then need to be filed. So you send them in kind of as an amendment, and so there's no cost for that.
Yeah, and in our community, we notarize signatures of 60% of the people to change one word.
That's tough. I would think that.
You have your notary stamp.
That's right. You need to- Those are one of those things, if somebody has to be a notary sitting in there,
Unless you
I don't know a lot of
walking
time
shut
to be-
door.
You have an update on the status of the reassessment?
The assessment, last I heard, should be on the bill in 2025 as we're going now. So it's still a couple of years out, obviously much slower than what they anticipated.
Is it
But each
online?
homeowner will get several notices before the bill comes out. Yep.
Do you have any idea when the bridge next to the library is going to be repaired?
I talked to them probably 2 weeks ago, and they had ordered the bridge, and it was a 9 to 10 week delivery. So I'm going to say by June, or sometime beginning of June. They got, the crews know, they've been trying to save it, but when they got down into the footer areas, the metal was just so deteriorated that it wasn't going to be safe no matter what they did. So they ordered a brand new bridge. And they said that no matter what their crews are working on, they will pull them off when the bridge comes in so that it can be installed as soon as possible. But again, the delivery issue. And I don't know, if you call somebody and they just say, hi, you have a 40-foot bridge? Oh, sure, we'll just put it on site and bring it to you. I have no idea whether you have to give them specs and they build it from
Sure you
specs
do.
or whatever. But yeah, hopefully by June. Thank you.
It's great. Can you take it with you?
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the 4th of July Festival and fireworks. I do know that they're still looking for volunteers, and Tom has mentioned that he made a deposit of $16,500 on the fireworks. And what is the balance and when is it due?
That's 50% deposit.
So it's,
Yeah, they didn't hold their price down this time. They gave us a break last year. Now we're paying full price, so you can say it's 33,000. That sounds low, though. I thought it was going to be more like 35, but
It's how much for the whole thing?
well, it's at least another 16,500.
They
when
used
is it due? You know?
Well, that's much closer to the event. Yeah,
And we do have the funding
that's
already.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those companies used to charge $5,000 for every 5 minutes. Did they tell you how much it's costed per?
Mark
limited
Mark
time?
has been in touch. He's the one who negotiated them last year to hold the price. So he would be the one that would have to answer those questions.
When we started the fireworks here, you bought in increments. You know, it wasn't like by 5 minutes, it was like 12 minutes in the air, 20 minutes in the air, and the price
Yeah.
continued to go up.
Yeah. It's gone up quite a bit from the beginning.
And Tom, can I just, whichever Tom.
No, it's time.
Can I just say that everybody that has run the 4th of July parade from 1989 on, we kept our own accounts, but we were always under GHADA, because for insurance purposes, for nonprofit, we had to be under somebody. So GHADA was always the entity that was underlying, but none of us ever, other than getting a $200 donation, none of us ever came to GHADA and said, oh, can we do this, you know, all of that. So this is not new that GHADA has it, but it's new that they are watching the funding.
Okay, we'll go on to the land use report. I'll try to make it brief. The MVF master plan in York Glen, Delmarva Power has installed new underground power lines and a distribution transformer directly across from the post office in York Glen. The sewer force main work status is currently unknown as to when it's going to begin. Small area adjacent to the site has had some preliminary groundwork done and an access lane put in. And there is a permit coming through for discharge of groundwater, rainwater, water surface from the site. Valley Road in Little Baltimore, nothing new on that. The Brick Ranch at 701 Valley Road, no change. 520 Valley Road, no change. The Exxon gas station and Richardson's Nursery, the only thing there is they should be filing the plan soon, and there were more recent surveying and testing completed last month, and again earlier this month. The Valley Grove, former Camerano Mushroom House and property, they currently have sold and have contracts on between 10 to 12 homes, and they're actively, with the good weather, showing more sites, and hopefully that'll be moving along quickly. Harmony Road at McGovern, they're still working on the ground system with the parking. They haven't started any construction equipment over there yet. The Western Lane Assisted Living at 6042 Limestone Road, that is withdrawn and canceled, that whole plan for an assisted living. Hocussin Station, there's nothing new on that. And Lantana Square with the stormwater engineering, there's nothing new with that yet either. So basically, that's what's happening in land use.
Got a question.
Yes.
What's going on with the Shell station over here? They just tore out all the pumps. all torn
I
up.
don't know.
They have a bunch of bobcats sitting in there and all the concrete torn up. Are they
they're just remodeling.
staying there and they're just remodeling, or
They haven't done anything
does
with
anybody know?
the store, it's all the same as before. You know, if they were gonna abandon the area, I would think they would have emptied the store out by now.
Oh, okay.
The demolition of that.
Mhm.
I think they're just putting new tanks underground and new pumps and just upgrading the whole system.
Yeah. New pumps and new tanks. That's what it looks like, because they just tore up those areas within like,
Yeah. Yeah, since they didn't touch the store at all, I don't think they're demolition in the whole area.
okay.
It's probably very similar to what they did down at Duncan Road and Kirkwood Highway.
Mm-hmm.
They did that to that gas station recently. Just did a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
All right, we'll ask Pete for a historical review report.
Sure. If you didn't get the handout, we have pretty much everything included on here. We're usually a month behind because we're historic. So, yeah, we're a little slow on getting things done. So it takes some time to get up to date on things. But there is a new historic marker coordinator who is starting on the 24th of this month. So hopefully we'll get our Burt Robbins, I'm sorry. Yeah, the Shirley Bula marker, historic marker installed sometime, because we have funding for that through Mike Smith, and it was just held up because they don't have a historic marker coordinator position. So every time that person leaves, they have to wait months and months to get that position filled again. So hopefully we'll have that historic marker actually installed sometime soon. I think that's extremely important and significant for our area. All the other updates on here are really new things that we've been working on. One of the projects we're doing is the Network to Freedom site with the National Park Service. So that's recognizing sites in our area that are either sites or even our museum that involve the Underground Railroad. So mostly they're houses that are in this area that were involved with the Underground Railroad and helping slaves get to freedom. So there's a whole bunch of people that were responsible for that need to be recognized, and we're working on that through a lot of research. So that's being handled and done. And other than that, we haven't been doing that much this month. It's been nice. Yeah, I've had a nice month off almost, I think. But do you have any questions? And we're still working on getting our alarm system set up for the museum. So that's one issue that we definitely have to get done. We have the funding for it. We've already been approved for the funding. We have it, and we're working on getting those cameras installed. But it's a strange process because there's so many different options, and every company that comes in has a different option on what should be done. So it's a tricky process, but we're working on that, and that'll be done soon. And I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going out to Wilmington Friends School, and I'm going to talk to the third grade about Underground Railroad here in Hillcrest. And I'll be looking around for other places that might be interested in hearing about the Underground Railroad as well, especially the underserved community schools. So if you know of a place that might be interested with a lot of little kids, let me know. And also remember that on June 14th, we have Juneteenth event, which you're all invited to.
Can I just say, Darlene, that one of my grandchildren, it just dawned on them about a year or so ago that the Underground Railroad wasn't a real railroad that ran underground. So for third graders, you might want to make that clear.
If you're going to Friends School, there's a teacher who teaches there. Her name is Teal Rickerman.
Okay.
You might want to get in touch with her while you're there. She's a Quaker. I know her from some of the different Quaker meetings in the area here. And she'd be very helpful in getting your word out to some of these other schools and organizations. This Sunday, yesterday, they just had a Quaker meeting at the Millhouse Meeting House that invited members from a 40-mile radius in this area from all the different Quaker meetings. So, you know, she recently has had contact with a lot of people around the area. So she might be a good source. Teal Reckerman.
Okay, thank you.
And I have a question for Pete and Darlene. I knew the Fenimore family when they lived on Pike as you go up the hill, which is now the Hockessin Chiropractic Center. And they had told me that they had a doorway and a tunnel that they discovered in the basement that was part of the Underground Railroad. And that was one of the last stops at Holding Station as they were trying to move slaves from there over the line, less than a mile away into Pennsylvania to freedom. So I don't know if you've got information on all of that, or?
Yeah, well, we do have information on, and it's really something, because every time you get out and you talk to community groups, and you mentioned the Stratworth House, a lot of the Afro-American folks will all of a sudden come forward and stand up and say, we know about that place. Yeah, it seems like they did have a little activity going on in there. Now, I'm not sure about the tunnel in the basement and all these other things, but that's something that we can look into.
You might want to contact the chiropractic center or Midori or somebody and see if you could get access to the basement. Because when the Fenimores owned it, they did tell me at one time that there was a doorway there that was the doorway to the tunnel. I don't know if the tunnel has since been filled in or collapsed or whatever.
So with them doing all that work for the retirement center up the street, you would think that they would have ran into that at some point. So I don't know if that's actually true, but the Midori family, they're the ones who actually own that house, I think, now. And we got permission from them to actually list this property on the Networks of Freedom site. So we are working on that. That is pretty much a done deal. So with the Park Service, we really have that listed on the Networks of Freedom site, but we can't really announce that until it's actually done. So I'm not supposed to say anything until it's approved officially.
Well, from what I heard, the tunnel ended at that house. And from there, they went in the evening, overland the last half mile into Pennsylvania.
I heard that it went from the basement in there, like to the to the PA Delaware border. But it seems kind of strange that they would have actually done something like that, that they would have constructed something so elaborate to try to get across the border when they could have easily walked. But
What I heard was that was the final terminal spot of the tunnel.
and then when people actually got up to Pennsylvania, they still weren't free. They were still fugitives. So they were going up to Canada even, to try to get to freedom. So it's a very interesting issue, and we're documenting all of the facts that we know, and it's going to be presented pretty soon in a very large ceremony, hopefully. So we have my house, and then that house, the Jackson house, and then we have 3 other sites that we're working on also at the same time. So then hopefully we'll have a big ceremony for all of those and have that announced publicly.
Moving on, can we get a report from the Business Association?
We are actually meeting here tomorrow at 6:30, and our guest speaker is attendance tonight. Bob will be our presenter, but it's our Hockessin Business Association annual meeting for all members, tomorrow at 6:30. Prior to the meeting, we have what is called the Taste of Hockessin. We have a number of restaurants and other food stores that will be donating their dishes, I guess, their special dishes for the membership at 6:30, and then our meeting starts at 7. And again, Bob Klezix, is that my friend? Is doing he is our guest speaker tomorrow, so we're anxious to hear what he has to say. So that's tomorrow.
Okay, old business, new business, and we'll go to Trish, who has elections coming up in next month's meeting.
Our board elections are in May, and I have queried the people who are on the board whose seats are up, and all but two, one I haven't heard from and one said no, will be running for their seats again.
Is there any more old business or new business anyone wants to bring up, or anything for good of the order?
Design Review Committee. We mentioned it last meeting, and somebody said they thought that whole thing had been disbanded, that there wasn't anybody participating anymore. Janet wasn't here. I just wondered, Janet, do you know anything about that draft?
Yeah, we talked about that
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
And your associate sent me out a list, and, but I don't know what else.
They just haven't met. It's,
what I
oh, yeah, that's what vacancies there are in all of the boards, I think. And DRAC has basically nobody. I think Franny Swift might still be on that list.
Bless all day, rest in peace.
Yes, many years. It's not taken off the books. It's still in existence, but it just has not been active.
But nobody's been
Right.
participating.
Right. Now, Trish said that she would be willing to be on it, but there's no one else that I've talked to that seems to want to step up at all.
Janet, I've never been thrown off it.
You got what?
I've never been thrown off it.
No, I don't think anybody's been thrown off, but it just
still on
doesn't seem to, yeah. Are you doing well on that board?
Yeah, I'm doing very well.
But it just died. I mean, they were going along month by month, and
They
there's,
used to have meetings right before the gate.
right, right. And then all of a sudden, there was
The
nothing.
county's supposed to organize those meetings to review design changes in the center of Hocus.
Yes, if we staff it, and we're still willing to staff it, but you have to have community members that live within that certain
That
area.
was what I was supposed to find out, and I didn't write it down on paper, and my mental notes are not worth the paper they're written on, so I'll have to make a paper note. Are there specific areas that people must live in?
They're
Or
supposed
just
to
within
live
the
in-
boundaries?
Yeah, there's boundaries, like there's the overlay boundary, and then there's another boundary outside of that. And first of all, maybe she lives within it, maybe one other person, or Fran Swift, lived within the boundary. Everybody else that was ever on DRAC was outside of those boundaries. So obviously, they don't hold them.
Well, Ken Murphy is.
He was way out, he was outside,
Way out.
yeah.
And he's listed as
The chair,
the top one.
yeah,
And there's a Melissa Rufo
right, she's fairly new.
as a business owner, and the staff is listed as Phil McBride. And those are the only people who are listed on this chart. So if I go into that, is there some way to find out how this requirement for residents is set up?
Yeah, I can go back and look it up and send you something.
There was something that I found on the internet,
Yeah, there should be the
which was, you just look it up under, I forget what it was,
boards and commissions probably.
state.org or something, and then I
Yeah.
cruised through a whole bunch of
Yeah,
menu.
you should, under nccde.org, you should be able to go under boards and commissions. So there'll be like a sidebar that will say boards and commissions. Click on that, and then draft comes up.
Yeah, that's what I feel. But
Okay.
they had a contact.
That's how I got this.
They had a contact, either an email or a phone number, I forget which, and I sent them messages, and I never heard back from anybody.
Yeah, so Sue Moore was the liaison, because I can make the nomination, but the county executive has to approve it. And I don't know that he would not approve anyone, you know. I mean,
I'm
doesn't-
sure if we came up with people who met the requirements, then we would rubber stamp.
Exactly. It takes a little longer than that to go through the process, but yes. And then Stephanie Moore has taken that over recently, so you may have gotten in between two people, I don't know, but I can look into it too.
How could we read something that spells out what that committee is supposed to do and what their expectations are?
It should be within the code. It should be within the Newcastle County Code.
Newcastle County Code,
Mhm.
and what would it be listed under?
Right.
See, that's just it. I can't find any
know.
information.
I'll go back and look at that too and see what I can find.
I have all the documents pertaining to that, what the responsibilities of the DRAC are. We're only an advisory committee.
Right.
It's just an advisory committee for the Newcastle County.
But the county does give DRACs a little more
Right.
leeway. You
Mhm.
know, if you put some criteria, I mean, if we say a sign has to be maximum however many feet, and you say, but we want it to be less than that, you're listened to in that respect.
All right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that there just was not a lot of building or renovation going on, and people got older and passed away.
Cindy Gamble was taking the lead more or less on this.
She was,
And she stopped taking the lead, so.
right, she was very, very good, and I think I mentioned that the last time I was here, that I had talked to her and asked her if she would like to come back, because she retired. You know, part of it was she was working full-time, family commitments, you know, all of that, and she had done it for a couple of years. So she gave me some indication that she would think about it, but then I never heard back from her, so. Since there was nobody else to be on it with her, other than Peg, and I guess Melissa, I mean, we are one of the largest DRACs. We can go up to 9 people. Most of them are like 5. But we can still hold it without having 9 people. But I think we have somebody out here expecting that they're going to be able to get people.
9
easily.
slots out here.
You went?
9 slots.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, historically, they've done a lot of good in the past. I remember when Wells Fargo took over the Dublin Trust,
Right.
they wanted to put a larger sign,
Right.
and DRAC got them to cut the sign
Right.
down to the size
Right.
it is now.
Right.
Same thing with Walgreens at Lantana, and also at Brackenville. So they've done a lot of good historically.
Right.
Like you said, there's not been a lot of new construction, so
But it might be nice to try and get it reinstated because of what's going to go in the old Exxon station. You know, that is going to be something that's within the boundaries.
could we send out an email to all the GHADA board members and community
I sent-
associations?
I sent the email that this one came from. Out to everybody.
But do you want to send
Nobody's
one out
for-
specifically for DRAC and mention that, you know, the construction is going to be happening in the middle of Hockessin and
I'm
see
more
if
than
that?
willing to send out another email, but I did send one out.
Right, no, we had talked about that, but if you do one, I mean, if somebody looks at that whole chart and it's like, oh my God, you know, would I want to be on this board or that board, and all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't want to be on any board. But if you said something very specifically about the construction, you know, that there's going to be new construction on Lancaster Pike and Yorkland Road, that might make a couple of people.
Peg, can I email you and?
Yeah,
and
please do.
Get some information? If I put together something, something a little more substantial than, we have these vacancies, we don't know if you will qualify, but would you like to be
Right,
on,
right.
would you like to fill one of these vacancies?
Right. I mean, basically, when we start running out of people from the immediate area, because it's, you know, you have to have like a business owner, so many business owners, so many residential. Well, Hickory Hill is one of the only communities that's within that area, so it's really hard to get a lot of residential
Well,
people.
Manly is right across from Hickory Hill, and that's why I'm wondering if Manly is encompassed in it.
I don't
Or if
remember
we're
that.
just on the wrong side of the road.
Just the wrong side of the road, yes. And that's the case on McGovern. You know, I think it goes up to McGovern, but the other, your side of McGovern is not within it. But obviously, since we, you know, 90% of the people over the last however many years have not been from right within, there are exceptions that we can make.
Well, I will try to put together something and send out an email, and I put a big star next to it. It says, send down another email.
Okay, and I think if we target just one committee, and it's very local, and you mention that something is going on, that people will be more interested. And then we have to have a chairperson now.
Well, I could contact Ken Murphy and see what transpires there. Well, he's still listed,
I know,
so
because his
I'll
term,
ask him,
right,
you know, what's
because
up?
for boards, unless you resign, you term, and you just continue on until somebody says you're done or you resign. You know, it's not like, okay, you hit 2024, you're gone. Because we just don't have enough people that are interested in any of these things that we can keep, we can barely keep boards full.
And to get appointed, you contact the county and they send an application out.
We should start a hobby club for all the retirees in Newcastle County. That, let's see what board we want to serve on for this session.
We have a decent number of retired, but, you know, it's one of those things where the most active people are the ones that are more willing to be on boards than those that are no longer really active. It's just a hard thing. I mean, you know, it's a hard thing to keep all those people on all those boards going.
It's hard to get anybody together for a meeting. If you're trying to put together a meeting in homeowners association, somebody is trying to get a meeting together in our homeowners association now for almost a year. And
I think some of it became easier when we did virtual,
yeah,
you know, because they didn't have to worry about leaving the house.
yeah.
They could be on, and then if their kids had to go to bed, they could just turn their, you know, they stay on, just turn your camera off, get your kids in bed, and come back on the meeting. Sometimes it's going out rather than just participating.
Yeah, people are still freaking out about COVID. It's ridiculous.
There's still no people that are dying, and I'm sure that they all had underlying
Yeah.
issues, but they weren't dying before they got the COVID. You know, it's just, my husband and I have that argument all the time, because he thinks the numbers of deaths from COVID are inflated, and I think he just doesn't want to recognize that you got that, even though maybe you were compromised, you were living.
You crossed that line.
So, yeah,
Okay, do we have any more old business, new business, or anything for good of the order, or does anybody want to add anything else? If not, motion to adjourn?
and all of you pass on to Mark that without him, we were on here less than an hour.
The land use report wasn't 20 minutes long.
Yeah, you were the first.